Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah ma ba'd. The question is asking here, if a man divorces his wife during the Iddah period, are they still married or are they strangers to one another? I mean, if they're still married, she doesn't need to cover in front of him and she can continue living there, etc. But if they're strangers to one another, does she distance herself? Do they separate their beds? Does she wear hijab in front of him? Do they not freely mix in, the different rooms and the different places in the house? How does it work during the Iddah period? That's the first part of the question. And the second part of the question, if they have intercourse, is that allowed during the Iddah? Is that zina because he's issued the talaq? Or is it that he is taking his wife back? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in Surah At-Talaq, there's a surah in the Quran called Surah At-Talaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that surah says, لا تخرجوهن من بيوتهن ولا يخرجن. If a person has divorced his wife during the Iddah period, he is not allowed to drive her out of her home, meaning that the Iddah needs to take place in the husband's house. So after the first talaq and the second talaq, that Iddah period has to take place in the husband's home. After the third talaq, if there is a third talaq, then that is different. But the first one and the second one, she remains his wife. He continues to maintain her. She doesn't need to cover. Everything is normal until the Iddah period is over. So the talaq has been issued, but during the Iddah period, everything remains as normal. Now, during the Iddah period, if the husband wants to take her back, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah, وَبُعُولَتُهُنَّ أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ إِنْ أَرَادُوا إِصْلَاحًا. If the husband thinks that there is goodness in them getting back together, the separation has actually helped the relationship, etc., then the husband has most right to take her back. Now, the purpose of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioning the husband here is because he has taken the contract of nikah himself, and he has every right to absolve himself from that contract. However, during the Iddah period, as the ulama have mentioned, one of the wisdoms behind the Iddah is that there is hope that they can then reconcile, that the wife can then ask the husband, maybe you need to think about it, maybe you need to think about the consequences, maybe you will miss me, all of these different things. So this is what happens during the Iddah period, and now you can see the hikmah, and this is just one of the hikam. Others from the ulama have mentioned that the person in Islam is not supposed to be hasty in making his decisions. Others from the hikmah that they have mentioned is that the husband and the wife can have time to reflect. So hasty in the sense that, okay, I want to do this now instead, or time to reflect about each other's mistakes. The Iddah period gives the woman a chance to biologically recover and make sure that she's not pregnant, etc. So the ulama have mentioned that there are different wisdoms as to behind why the Iddah period has been legislated. One of them clearly is that hopefully there is a chance for them to reconcile. How does the husband take his wife back? So now the question is asking here, they've probably had intercourse, that's probably why he's asking it. So then, is that included in him taking her back, or is that zina because he's issued a talaq? Now, if we can understand that the nikah is still intact, then him speaking to his wife is not haram, him having relations with his wife is not haram. The majority of the ulama have said, if the person has the niyyah to take her back and he verbalizes his taking back of her, or he does it through an action as well as that niyyah, then this is him taking her back. So he has the niyyah and he says, I think we should get back together, or I think the talaq is a bad idea, or I'll take back the talaq, or he hugs her and he embraces her, or he has intercourse with her, or something like that. This is him taking her back, and this is the view of the majority of the ulama. The Malikis have said the person needs to have the intention alone, due to the generality of the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَبُعُولَتُهُنَّ أَحَقُّ بِرَدِّهِنَّ. It's down to the husband, and if he's intended, that's it. The Hanafis have said the person must verbalize it. Even if it's not intentional, he must verbalize it, and the only action which is seen as him taking her back is intercourse. So if they have intercourse, you don't ask him for his intention. You don't say, well, why did you do it? This is because the Hanafis are saying that would be zina otherwise. So the very fact that they are still in nikah and he has had intercourse with her, she remains his wife now. And now you can see that there are three opinions. The first opinion is that if a person intends it and he verbalizes it, or he does an action to take her back, it could be an embrace, it could be a holding of the hand, it could be intercourse, it could be something greater, it could be something smaller, then the majority have said that this is him taking her back. And this for me seems to be the correct opinion, because whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to do something in the Quran, it goes back to how we customarily understand it. So if you customarily send her a text when you say, okay, I think we should get back, that's you taking her back. And Imam al-Nawawi rahimahullah uses as evidence the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, well-known hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, in Bukhari and Muslim, on authority of Umar bin Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Your actions are based on their intentions, and everyone will have what they intended. So if you intended to take her back, then you have taken her back. As we have mentioned, another view from the ulama is that you have to verbalize it. And another view from the ulama is that you just have to have the intention, and once you've got the intention, then this is sufficient. But what for us seems to be the correct view is that it combines both of those latter opinions into one opinion, which is the view of the majority, is that you have to verbalize it as well as having the intention, or you have to have the action as well as the intention. So now hopefully we can understand the answer to your question, that during the Iddah period she remains your wife. You don't need to cover, or she doesn't need to cover, and you don't need to cover. Things are normal, and if you have intercourse with her and you've got the intention of taking her back, then that is you taking her back. If you verbalize taking her back, that is again you taking her back. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allows for tranquility and comfort and blessings and sakina to descend upon us as individuals and on all of the households of the Muslimin, wherever they may be. Allahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad.